It is 6:30. I'll call the meeting of the Bay City Planning Commission to order. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening. We have with us tonight Commissioners Dennis Banachak, Whitney Anderson, our newest commissioner, Timothy Beckman. Is that correct, Timothy? Welcome, by the way. Ashley Meyer, Sheila Turbot, Michael Burns, and myself, Douglas Rise. Staff present as Terry Multane and Lisa Giffens. First order of business is approval of minutes from our April 16th, 2025 meeting.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and support to approve the minutes of our April 16th, 2025 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is for public comment for anyone wishing to speak on anything that is not on our agenda for tonight. Any member of the public wishing to make comment on any item not on our agenda, please step forward to the podium, sign in, state your name, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one step forward, we will move on. We have one postponed case SPR 24-06 for 603 Columbus Avenue. Austin Associates Architects and Planners requesting site plan approval for the proposed redevelopment of the property to constitute 1,500 square foot retail space for a convenience store. This was postponed from our April meeting. Terry, do you have any update?
There was a plan that was sent to me in anticipation of this meeting, but it was sent to incorrect email address, and it was late last week that we realized that. By then, I had informed them that I need to be able to review it. So by the time I've gotten it, there wasn't enough time to put it at your desk. So we're going to have that for sure at the June meeting, so I would ask that it just be postponed to the June meeting.
I would entertain a motion to postpone case SPR 2408-06, for one more month.
I'll make a motion that we postpone case SPR 24-06, 603 Columbus Avenue until our next meeting.
Second.
I have motion and support to postpone case SPR 24-06 for one more month. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, new business. This is case SU 25-06 for 1001 Center Avenue. This is a special use application and a site plan review. As such, it will require a public hearing. So our first order of business will be to move to open a public hearing.
Make a motion that we open the floor to the public hearing for this item.
I have motion and support to open public hearing on case SU 25-06. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Terry, staff report, please.
Yes, in your packet, you were provided with some of the general information that is both the standards for the bed and breakfast based on the zoning ordinance, specifically section 122-474, which provides the regulations as far as timing for the guest and other uses of the property when it is operated as a bed and breakfast inn. There was some information, additional information that I had researched after the staff report went out, which was from the 1964 Zoning Board of Appeals. So I did provide a copy of that. I do believe that it's relevant, even though it was 61 years ago, because that's when the Tupper residence was converted to the offices. So the Zoning Board of Appeals, as you can see in the first meeting, there was a drawing that was represented showing some parking spaces. And then at the meeting, they recognized that the parking space dimensions don't meet the current ordinance is what they state. And then they get into a discussion about the parking. It appears that there was a solution to some parking for the offices that were created in 1964 by a property down the street. It talks about an agreement, an access agreement for that property being between the two parties. Well, I don't know what became of that because there's really no record. It does state in the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting minutes that there's still a request to find adequate permanent parking. And I've been told that that parking was developed years later, and it was across the street on Grant Street. And let's see, what address did I have? I was told anyway that that was the parking was sold, and then since that time it was sold to the property owner who has a dwelling unit on the corner. So they acquired that property. I don't know if that's factual. I haven't been able to research that, but in either case, let's go back and look at the parking that is provided on the site. There are deficiencies with the size dimension of those parking spaces. So they would have to be extended. I did a measurement of 3 foot 8 inches of the parking would have to be expanded where the former striping is for the parking spaces. I did talk to the applicant to make sure that we were counting the correct parking spaces and what the situation of the dimensions of the lot were. So the most that I've been able to determine myself is it looks like 9 parking spaces could be accommodated on the site. There's a requirement for 10 parking spaces based on 8 units or 8 facilities, and then 2 for the innkeeper. That's what the ordinance states. So either one more parking space would have to be found, or variance requests for parking requirements would be an option. And then those are decided after a special use is approved. So in either case, if there was action on a variance, it would have to follow after the approval if it was granted for the special use. The site plan, we do recognize now that some dimensions do have to change because the site plan is off a little bit by showing a north property line further than it actually extended of the 125 feet. I'll let the applicant, Ms. Edmonds, speak about that north property line and whatever discussion or agreement that they may have had as far as that situation where the property to the north is accessing their parking by way of the drive on the private property at the 1001 Center Avenue. So I'll let Ms. Edmonds speak to that. I do want to, make sure you had a chance to read those meeting minutes because when I did, find them, I thought it was very helpful to me, and I would have included them in the packet to give you a chance. So I do want to make sure everybody has a chance to read it. Having said all that, I guess if Ms. Edmonds would like to come up and maybe add anything that I have.
Would you sign in on the sign-in sheet? State your name and address for the record, please.
Lindsay Edmonds, 1003 Washington Avenue, Bay City, Michigan. Thank you all for being here. A couple of things to address that Terry mentioned in regards to the parking lot that Peter Franz Sr. purchased in 1966. He purchased that lot after 2 zoning board of appeals. It was recommended he purchase a lot to reach the parking requirements. He sold it 2 years later in 1968 because there didn't pose to be any issues with the parking on the site or with the office. His tenants in the building at the time parked in the parking spaces in the parking lot that's currently there, and then the customers or clients of everyone who had an office would park on the street. So that parking lot was obtained and then later sold 2 years later. The city never followed up on it as to why there wasn't parking. There never seemed to be an issue within the neighborhood. So that's a little history on the parking lot. As Terry mentioned, there is a shared driveway. Terry, did they have Peter Franz's drawing in their packets? Or do they have the originals?
Let me see, I think they have the originals.
Okay. So if you have the original site plan in your packets, Peter Franz, the architect who converted this in the 60s, this is his drawing. The Tupper House lies north of the property line. That's the amended site plan.
Yeah, this one I didn't include because when I went back and did those dimension measurements, that's why I didn't use the 10. But let's see.
I can address, so the north property line that's shown here, the Tupper residence sits north of this. The shared driveway on Grant Street is used by the people who live in that home. They park, there's 2 allocated spots north of our parking lot. So they access the driveway, pull into our parking lot, pull up into their parking spaces. So this does not affect the 9 parking spaces that are on the site. And there was an agreement made with the Tupper residents and the Franz back in the 60s for them to access this driveway. Terry, I can pass this around. So
Yeah, I don't have that on the thumb drive I see here.
So I'll make an arrow where they enter, and then I'll put 2 stars on this where this is not our property and where those residents currently park. You can also see it in page 8 of your packet. The bottom photo, there's a photo of the home that's there on the north, and you can see how the cars are north of our property line up into the provided pavement space. So they are not within the 9 spaces provided.
It would be right here. This is the drive. This is right, I don't know if my...
Yes, that's the property line where the grass ends behind that car.
Let me see if I can find the pointer.
Terry.
So the north property line is about right there, and then this is that paved area that is over the north. There used to be a garage right here, I was told. But yeah, the property line runs about right down through there. And then this driveway is a 2-lane driveway, but they do, what it looks like, the way this car is parked, they're actually coming in off center, and then it looks like they're parked in. The idea of the original site plan was that was an exit, that was an exit. So ideally, for this site to work, I believe that you're going to have to send the traffic out the one-way driveway out to Center Avenue. Because I think once the dimensions are placed on the site plan, it's going to be a tight fit. Because I was out there, I did measure, and I guess the question that I had here on this drawing, you can see where I put my tape down. The reason I ended it right there is because if a car was parked there, they would have to be able to maneuver around that end car, and I think I've got a better picture down here, or maybe up here. Yeah, right here. So see from, and that's taking it right to the concrete building there. So that's 19 foot coming out. Right, oh yeah, let me do my clicker here. Let's see this one. Where's the red? Okay, right here. So this parking space extends out, but then we know in order for that vehicle to move around that vehicle, because right there is my tape, they would have to come around that vehicle and then go out.
That grass section also has to be paved, because that is
Yes.
part of our property, where the garage used to sit, yeah.
Yep. And the other recommendation I made with the site drawing was because parking is at a premium, this landscape area right here. How come this thing isn't? I don't know. What's going on with that? But the point is, in order, if a vehicle is parked here, because there are these faint painting stripes here for a parking lane, but I guess my comment is those parking spaces are deficient in size. So yes, they were parking there, but I have to be able to show and prove that I've got a 9x19 parking space. Because if I don't have a 9x19 parking space, I've got to take it to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's how important that 19-foot measurement is. You know, yeah, a little subcompact could park here and not need the 19-foot, but I need the 19-foot on the approved site plan. And if we can't get the 19, then my only option would be, you know, something for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Her architectural drawing has a 20 by 10 foot space in those same spots
What size?
on her drawing.
Yeah.
It's on there as a 10 by 20.
Yeah, that tape doesn't lie. So that's the, you know, the comments that I observed with regard to the parking.
Do you have any other comments?
I have no other comments for the commission. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions from commissioners to the applicant?
I noticed in the report here that it talks about needing screening. Where am I screening?
On the, so the north, this side, picture 6 there,
Yes.
some sort of fence or shrubbery, I believe, is required, which aesthetically I would personally want, and I think would be valuable and required as well in the home.
Is that in the report somewhere? Is that stated somewhere? Or should we add that to the?
Well, the one thing about with the screening, it would have to be added. The one thing that maybe it wasn't answered in the report is to what the situation with this adjacent parking. If that person needs that parking, which I believe they do, and if there is some type of an agreement recorded between those two properties, then obviously that part can't be screened. So the screening effect would be here. So yeah, this is a tricky situation because you've got pavement being accessed through this property. We would like to see some screening, but obviously you can't screen the entire north property line. So the only feasible screening appears to be up there.
Peter, I will comment on that. Peter Franz is waiting to hear from the attorney from his father to see if there's actually been anything recorded with that north home. If parking is supposed to be supplied, if there is a written agreement that's been recorded anywhere for them to use that driveway. It's always something Peter Franz has allowed them to do, but he is still researching if there's actually a recorded legal document that he has to allow access to that north home.
There was no legal document, you said?
He's trying to find if there is. So Peter Franz Sr. has passed. His father, or his son now owns this home. And so he has been searching, trying to find a legal document, if there is one even recorded, of the north home.
So,
Because legally, the driveway, that north driveway is Peter Franz's driveway.
so what would the extension of that be, depending on what you would find out?
Say that one more time?
Like, that information, how does that affect what you're planning to do, I guess?
So if there is not a legal document, I would graciously still allow the people in the north home to use the driveway and park in that space, absolutely. If there's, I don't know how that affects your decision, but on my behalf, yes, absolutely. They can use their property north of ours, they can use our driveway to access that property, even if there's nothing recorded.
So really, it just doesn't really affect much anyway.
It doesn't affect much unless I am denied the special use permit based on parking, then, yeah, maybe that comes into play there.
My other question too would be the screening with shrubs. I mean, that's basically that grassy area is basically his property, is it not?
Yes, but that is required, Terry, correct, from,
Yeah, ideally, you do need to screen, parking from adjacent residential uses. So,
I'm just not quite sure how you would do that.
right, yeah. And the two avenues is either that 5-foot green belt, or you can put in a fence, a screening fence, and have a 0 setback. But even then,
it's an interesting situation because Dr. Tupper built that home, he built both of those homes. So it's an interesting situation now, which I feel Bay City often finds themselves in these situations of you have the same family on very close lots, and now you want to separate usage of these. How do you accommodate both parties? We would accommodate by saying you can use our driveway, you can use your parking, but maybe part of your screening is sacrificed.
yeah, we would, yeah, because,
The other thing is that, I mean, with the driveway that narrow and if you were to put in a fence, you're kind of impeding your driveway at that point. I mean, it's not the widest driveway in the world. And especially since you're trying to get around that line of shrubs that's already there. How do you do that without, potentially hitting the fence?
right, yeah, that does create an issue.
Can I ask a question regarding the site plan that was in our packet?
Yes.
The north end of the property shows 10 spots, but they're on your subject parcel.
No, so that site plan was done from somebody out of town that's not a correct site plan, and that's why the site plan does need to be amended for parking because the measurements are incorrect. So his assumption was that 10 parking spaces could go to the north, when in fact, because of the home, they cannot.
I just wondered, because it was obvious that those 10 parking spots would be right in the middle of that house.
Right, yes, exactly.
Yeah, where the north property line ends is at that 125-foot dimension, just to the north of where it says existing driveway.
So if, would there be a parking issue if they reduce the number of units to 7?
No, there would not be because, well, one of the things I do recognize and have emailed Lindsay about it is the dimensions. You know, if we can get the true dimensions on there, I think it will show that there are those parking spaces identified in the back. The only thing that I had noted when I did my measurements is there's a shrub that's there adjacent to the house, and you need every inch right there to get the 2 parking spaces. It does accommodate 9 by 19 right there. So the number parking spaces 1 and 2, and then the 3, 4, and 5, those are the ones that, based on the zoning ordinance, would have to be extended to meet the 19-foot. And then there's a blank spot in between, you'll notice, parking space 3 and 4. That is this shrub that I'm showing on the overhead right here. I hope it's showing up right in the center there. Now, this could be removed, and then, again, if it's dimensioned properly, there could be a parking space there. Because right now, the reason it's not being counted as a parking space might be 1, because of the door, and then 2, this landscape island is right there, causing you not to be able to pull into a parking space. So there's a possibility for a parking space there. The 2 that I do question without having some dimensions, they're not shown on this drawing. They were up in that corner that we had spoken about. Those are the ones that are going to be real tight, and I think we would have to see the dimension. But yes, to answer your question, we could either have a zoning board of appeals request to try to get a variance from the parking, or reduce the number of unit, which would take away one of the parking space requirements.
So maybe I'm just blind, but even if you remove that shrub, wouldn't that only be 6 on this site plan? I thought there
Well,
was
there's,
9.
on the other drawing I passed around, there's 2 that go along the side of the building. On page 8, you can see that would be the east side of the home, the driveway that goes out to Center Avenue. There's 2 cement pilings there that are holding like a basement window. Those could be removed, and 2 spots can go in there. And then up where the existing driveway is what Terry was talking about, of turning that corner. Potentially, Terry, 2 spots were measured?
Possibly, but I could meet you out there and we could do some measurements.
Dennis?
Thank you. Through the chair, respectfully, Terry, I appreciate your legwork, but I'd rather see an actual survey drawing. And as far as having the neighbor provide you with legal documents, it's incumbent upon you to get a survey done and to do a property search through a proper firm so that we can actually know what property is yours, what property may be shared, and we can get a drawing, a site plan drawing done by a professional that actually provides the dimensions we need to see so that we can go forward with this. You know, the documents we have here, they're interesting, but they don't satisfy my requirement for making a decision. There's a cost of doing business, and this is one of them. A professional survey with a title search and a site plan drawing done by an engineer will go a long way to showing us exactly what you intend to do and whether or not you meet the requirements of the ordinance. I'm looking at your floor plan here, and I see 2 ADA rooms. Where are your ADA parking spaces?
There's an ADA ramp outlined on
See
that.
the ramp, where are your parking spaces?
They would be directly next to that ramp.
So you would have 3 8-foot wide spaces, the center space striped, spaces on the other
No.
sides. Well, then you're not meeting the requirements of the American with Disabilities Act.
Sir, first of all, I understand the expense of doing business. I have 6 commercial properties in this town and have a long, successful track record in this community, first, I will tell you. Secondly, in regards to the property search being incumbent upon me, we are doing that. Peter Franz does own the property. That is who is searching for that document. So maybe you were mistaken. I can redo the site plan for you, that's no problem, but I will not be insulted by your comments.
Wasn't intending to insult you. We expect a certain level of document here so that we can take a look at what is actually going on out in the field. You have not provided that.
That's all you needed to say. Explaining to somebody the cost it costs to do business is unnecessary, and you need to retract your statement.
I'm not going to retract my statement. I stand by it. As a professional engineer myself, I know what to look for. So as I'm looking at this, I can see it as woefully inadequate.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
will,
trying to insult you. I'm trying to let you know what it's going to take to get it through this board. And if you don't bring the proper documents, there's no way we can make a decision because we don't have enough information to make that decision.
okay, that's all you needed to say. Thank you for your comment.
You are welcome.
Question that I have for you, what is your ownership status on 1001 Center at this point?
I do not own this property at this point in time. There is a land contract currently in agreement pending the approval of this.
Anybody else have any further questions? Timothy?
So when, I understand that he's looking to see if he can find a document relating to any easement use, things like that. Is it correct then that a full title search has been done and nothing was found there?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And I have a question for Terry. This is kind of a weird way of going about it, but is it possible that we could approve her based on how many available parking spaces she has now, and then she can come back with an amended site plan or something for the other 2 spaces? I mean, is that something that we could potentially do, or is there a way to do that so that she can proceed with whatever she needs to do in the interim?
Yeah, I did look at that real closely before the meeting, just in anticipation of a question like that. The way you might even have this in your staff report, I just pulled it out separately, but section 122-356 regarding a special use says the Planning Commission shall review the application, which is the application for special use, and the site plan and any reports and findings prepared by the Planning Department. Review of the site plan shall be concurrent with review of the application. And then it goes on to say later on that the Planning Commission may approve with conditions, or deny of the application. It may also postpone action on the application at either the request of the applicant or pending receipt of a revised site plan or supplemental information requested by the Planning Commission deemed necessary to an informed decision. So it does put the site plan and the special use together as far as the review concurrently. So if there was a postponement, it would be recommended that both the special use and the site plan would be coupled together with that, if that was the case. Because we wouldn't be able to approve the site plan.
Well, isn't this site plan sufficient for a 6 space, I mean, assuming that you have to take out that landscaping to make the 6th space, isn't this site plan sufficient to approve at least 6?
It'd be 7, one parking space per room, 2 for the innkeeper, so 9.
Got it. So yeah, then you'd be down to what, 5? Yeah. But I mean, couldn't we hypothetically approve that much of it?
If you look at the standards for the site plan application itself, no.
I'm sorry, Doug, can you say that again?
If you look at the ordinance for what's required for the site plan application, it's quite a long list, and she's not sufficient in meeting the requirements of that application, so no.
You're saying because it states 8.
Because they're coupled together, and the site plan review requires us to look at all of those items, and if we don't have the response, we can't make an appropriate decision
Right, for 8, but we do have,
for the site plan in total.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have any other questions from the commission? Any other comments from staff or the applicant?
No.
Hearing none, I will open the floor to any other persons who wish to make comment on the application. Please come to the podium, sign in on the registration form. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Bruce Scherbeck. I'm a member of Trinity Episcopal Church, 815 North Grant Street. In that picture there, you see one of our entrances to the church. So we would really like to be kept informed of what's going on. We understand that the city needs places like this, the stuff that you want to build. We have bring people in, to have people going to our restaurants. But we're also very concerned about the parking. It doesn't show any in here, but the opposite side of our church, there's a 5-unit apartment unit. I think it was originally supposed to be 4. The owner added a 5th and said, well, I'm going to live there. Well, they don't live there. They rent it out. They sometimes use the parking on the street parking, I believe this. Wish I had your working pointer. But on Grant Street, and there's almost always a car. Lately, I'm in charge of the building. I'm in charge of keeping Trinity Episcopal Church going. So there are cars we think are parking that should be parking on Office Center, the building next to us, to the east. To the west, thank you. It's a 6-unit.
All right.
If you're going to speak, sir, you'd have to come to the microphone.
So I'll continue here. So there's some issues with parking. There's been issues that they're not keeping their property up. The house, the apartment next to us, we have a fence falling in, we have a garage falling in. And that's our concern with another unit being 5 or 6 or how many people are going to be in there. We need it, but I want to make sure there's enough parking so they don't end up parking, on a Saturday night. Sometimes it takes parking away from our church. So just keep us informed of what's going on. We're not coming here to fight this, but we want to make sure it's done correctly and not, I mean, the drawings that I kind of been seeing here doesn't answer it. I think you're right. We need to have an actual up-to-date site plan of where all the parking is. We're not fighting this. We just want to know that they're not going to be 2 or 3 cars parking on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to make a comment on the application? Seeing no one step forward, I would entertain a motion to,
Steve Ingersoll, 1514 Center Avenue.
please sign in, Mr. Ingersoll, to the, on the.
I get that.
registration.
Maybe. There we go. I rise in support of this effort. Having sat on this board for a decade or so, I think the purpose of this board is to improve the community. And let's not let process defeat purpose. We have a gem of a piece of architecture here. Bay City is known, and its greatest asset, in my opinion, is its architecture. Anything we can do to put the grand architecture of this town into productive use, as opposed to being in decay or in substandard use, the better off we'll be in the future. And as the Planning Commission, and as a member who helped write the zoning ordinance, let's keep the spirit of that document in mind, and let's not let purpose be defeated by process. Now, I understand there are issues. I'm well aware of them, and many others. And perhaps I'm the most invested person in this room in regard to matters of preserving architecture in this town. But it's really important, I think, for the long-term health of the city to do all you can to embrace productive use of this fabulous stock of architecture that we have. You know, you look at towns like Marshall, who's well known for its architecture. They've got like 4, and we've got 150 houses of that stature, and we're not known. I think that the days of single-family use, I'm not advocating for multiple apartment units. I don't think that's wise. I think the movement towards less density in these houses is, of course, correct. But if we happen upon a use that is compatible with these grand buildings and is resonant with Bay City's future, as I see it, we should be known for our architecture, and we're not. This is the grandest collection of architecture east of the Mississippi, I think. And we're hardly known for that. We need visitors coming and experiencing this. As you know, my wife owns and runs the Webster House. People from all over come to that place because it's a grand piece of architecture. And they come specifically to Bay City because of that architecture. They're not passing through for business. They come specifically for the architecture. The more we can display that architecture, and I tell you, people like it a lot. And we can make our name for ourselves as a community if we do more of these kinds of uses for this grand architecture. So I implore you, I recognize that firsthand the squabbles that can occur from parking and whatnot, property lines, all that. But don't lose sight of the purpose of your work. It must not be defeated by process. You should facilitate process to make good purpose. You guys are all smart people. You know what I'm saying is correct. And so work with her is what I say. Thank you.
Thank you.
And in response to that, as someone who also sits on the HDC and restores these beautiful homes full-time as my job, I absolutely agree. The one thing I will disagree with you on is I think there's a lot of people, at least regionally, that know us for our architecture. I see it because I belong to a lot of digital groups that echo that sentiment. So, I mean, maybe not on a national scale, but regionally at least. I do think, that being said, I do think it's very important. That's why I've made it my life's work. But I don't think anyone on this board, and I guess I can only speak for myself, but if I were to guess, disagrees with anything you're saying. I think we all very much appreciate the architecture here and its value, and people like Lindsay who want to save these buildings and make them still useful. I think what we're concerned with is just making sure that all the right boxes are checked, that there's, the right things are being met, and that, parking is adequate, things like that. But at least from what I gather from this discussion, I don't think that anyone is opposed to what Lindsay's attempting to do.
Thank you, Ashley. Terry, did we have any correspondences received in regards to our publication on this?
Yes, so if there's no other members from the public that wish to come to the podium, then I will go through. Most of these are short, so I do expect to read them at full length. This is dated May 12th, to whom it may concern. As the owners of a nearby 4-unit residential rental property, we are expressing our strong support for the special use zoning request to convert the historic home located at 1001 Center Avenue into an 8-bedroom bed and breakfast. This project represents an exceptional opportunity for adaptive reuse that aligns with Bay City's ongoing efforts to preserve and celebrate its rich architectural heritage. Rather than allowing such a notable property to deteriorate and remain underutilized, this proposal breathes new life into the structure while maintaining its historic character and charm. It is an example of thoughtful development that respects the city's past while contributing to its future. Moreover, the addition of a bed and breakfast will positively impact our local community by attracting visitors and supporting tourism. As landlords, we recognize that projects like this increase neighborhood vitality, elevate nearby property values, and draw attention to the city as a destination. I am confident that the proposed use will be respectful and beneficial to the neighborhood. The preservation of the historic home through careful, hospitality-focused development is not only a win for the property owner, but also for the residents, local businesses, and the community at large. Thank you for considering this forward-thinking project. I encourage the city to approve the zoning request and support this thoughtful and positive investment in Bay City's future. Signed, Margaret Appold and Matt Essler. The second one here is received May 15th. Dear Planning Commission, as a neighbor, which is directly across the street, I support Lindsay Edmonds' request to the Planning Commission for a special use and site plan approval to have an 8-bedroom bed and breakfast. I am a member of the Center Avenue Neighborhood Association, which voted to support the project, and the email I sent as Secretary of CANA sets out our reasoning. I'd like to go on record as a direct neighbor that supports the project. Stuart Barbier, PhD, 924 Center Avenue. Just a couple more here. Dear Planning Commission, this is the letter from CANA. On May 8, 2025, the Center Avenue Neighborhood Association Board of Directors voted to support Lindsay Edmonds' request to the Planning Commission for the bed and breakfast. We urge the Planning Commission to support this request. Currently, the building, which is an important contributing structure in the historic district, is in not very good condition and appears mostly empty. We would be pleased to see it restored. Also, we would not like to see it turned into yet more low-cost apartments, especially considering the Planning Commission approved a 12-unit in the next block. Instead, the bed and breakfast will attract people interested in historic properties, helping Cana in its quest to preserve our past, share our stories, and build our future. We are especially pleased to see a local business person take on the project, one with proven success in several other local businesses. Attracting more tourist dollars to our city is a win-win. Once again, support the request for the special use, signed Stuart Barbier, Secretary of Cana. This one is dated May 21st at today at 3:51. To the Planning and Zoning Board of Bay City, my name is the Reverend Susan C. Rich, and I am the priest at Trinity Episcopal Church at the corner of Center and North Grant. I am writing to you about the proposed 8-bedroom, which is across the street. We at Trinity have several concerns as follows. Parking is a big issue as neighbors, along with Trinity members and visitors, utilize parking on North Grant Street and 5th Street regularly. During the week, there are often several cars on North Grant Street. On Sunday, the street is full. It is if the location is turned into a bed and breakfast, we foresee the parking being even a greater challenge, as that will often be when a B&B is utilized. If the B&B would host parties and other events, this would cause additional stress on the street with sound and parking. Also, traffic on Center Avenue has increased, and it is already a challenge to turn left or across Center Avenue from Grant Street. We see this as being problematic for safety of pedestrians and drivers. For these reasons, we are opposed to the rezoning, which would be incorrect. It's the special use of the 1001 Center Avenue to an 8-bedroom bed and breakfast. Thank you. Peace, Reverend Sue of Trinity Church. And then the last one's a little bit longer, but not by much, and I will read it in full because I read the other ones in full. So this is dated May 21st. Dear Mr. Maltain, thank you for your time on Tuesday and listening to the concerns about the proposed 8-bedroom bed and breakfast. For the Planning Commission members' knowledge and sake, these are briefly the very legitimate concerns that were shared with Mr. Maltain. 1, parking and excess in and out would be beyond normal on an already busy intersection. There is currently off-street parking on both sides of North Grant, and there is room for only 1 lane of traffic. A church user recently made the observation that an emergency vehicle, even a fire truck would not be able to get through. 2, the neighbor to the north at 812 North Grant would be especially negatively affected by the B&B, and the building being able to have wedding, graduations, birthdays, anniversaries, and other parties, there would be even more parking logistic problems that would be in the neighborhood. Guests/renters at a nearby Airbnb apartment building already park on adjacent North Grant and North Van Buren because they don't have enough parking at 909 Center Avenue, half block away from the proposed bed and breakfast. 4, a special usage bed and breakfast would be especially busy on the weekends when Trinity Church has services. This is already problematic because when parking on both sides of North Grant have cars parked, only 1 lane is open and only 1 vehicle can drive through. It's already an invitation to an accident. In checking with the minutes, number 5, in checking with the minutes of the June 20, 2000 Planning Commission and Zoning meeting at City Hall, Mr. Peter Franz, the elder and father of the trustees, sent a note strongly opposing the bed and breakfast at nearby 900 Fifth. so that's a different topic there. And number 6, while for many years, 1001 Center Avenue has been used for business office, it needs to be known that in December of 1999, Mr. Peter Franz, now deceased, sold the parking lot at 709 Grant Street. That parking was required for people who did business at 1001. 709 North Grant Street was sold to Mr. Craig Johnson, who at the time owned 924 Center Avenue. That parking is no longer available to the owner or the future owner of 1001 Center Avenue. Number 7, and lastly, MDOT, Michigan Department of Transportation, needs to be aware of said proposal and give their input and insight. Thank you for listening to these concerns. Signed, Ed Benish of 812 North Van Buren Street. And those are all the public comments received.
That completes all of the public hearing portion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved?
I have a motion and support to close the public hearing on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll now move into the business portion of this particular application. Do we need a motion on that, Lisa? Or do we just do it?
To go into the business
Business
session?
meeting?
Yeah, usually you close out the public comment period, and then you go into that business session by doing so.
By motion or just move?
By motion, yeah,
By
to
motion.
close the public hearing, if we didn't do that.
We did that.
Okay,
Don't need a motion for discussion.
okay, no, you don't, no.
Okay, so we're open for discussion on our decision.
I think we kind of all agree with Ashley, what she said about trying to, and came from the public, trying to maintain in good working order and proper use a lot of the historic buildings which makes up Bay City. And really the only negatives that I think we heard center around impact of additional parking requirements. And at this time, it seems to me, we just simply do not have enough information to make a decision on this. So I move that we postpone case SU 2506-101 Center Avenue, Second Ward, to the June meeting, and in time to get a site plan that would allow us to make a decision on this matter.
Support?
I have a motion and support to postpone action on SU 2506. Do we have any other comments or discussion that we wish to have? Dennis?
Through the chair to Terry, do we need to go through the findings of fact if we're postponing?
No, not if you're postponing. It's just that additional information would be needed.
Thank you.
Yep. What I would like to say, if I have a quick second, I did mention it during my speaking, is keep in mind that in 1964, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted what would be called a use variance to allow the offices there. So all the way up until this time, it had the proper zoning for the office. The bed and breakfast is actually a residential use of the property, so it is actually a less intensive use than the commercial use that preceded it by having 6 to 8 offices. This request is viewed as a residential use of the property that allows the bed and breakfast to be established. So I just want to make sure that is noted, because actually the comment about MDOT, this is something that is a reduced parking demand on the property. So I do not personally feel that the MDOT would have a review process for this, because my argument to them would be that this is now going from a commercial to a residential use of the property. So I just wanted to make that point.
But still requires special use
It
approval.
still requires the special use,
Dennis?
correct?
Again, through the chair to Terry, any change of use requires an MDOT review when you're on an M road.
I have never been provided that factual statement.
Well, I'm going to suggest you talk to Mr. Hunley, because when you did Lafayette and did not go through him, you remember the fun we had with that?
Right. I'm not disagreeing for their review on new development. This is not new development.
Everything I've done on an M road, even if it isn't a change of use, Don considers it such.
Well, Don has to prove to us as a city why that would be a requirement.
And that's fine if we forward it to him for his approval, but the applicant needs to approach MDOT because they are on an M road. If they don't do that and Don finds out about it after the fact, it could result in court case, which we don't want to go into.
Well, again, my argument with Mr. Hunley at MDOT would be that it's a reduced use of the property. It's going from commercial to a residential type setting with the bed and breakfast. There is no expected physical change. And the third point I would make, unlike Euclid Avenue, which is in the zoning ordinance as an access management corridor, which is highly regulated by the zoning ordinance, does apply to Euclid Avenue. Where in his codes does it require that what he requires? I've been trying to find that information for 2 years now. So somebody show it to me. I'll be more than happy to meet the requirement.
We can discuss it later.
All right.
Just to point out, if we could separate the special use from the site plan, I would be in favor of supporting the special use, because I do think this will be a really good addition to the city. However, as much as we don't want to play with process, the thing we got to keep in mind that as a planning commission, it is our duty to ensure that the ordinance is enforced so that it's fair to all. So when we take a look at these issues, we're not looking at it to say, well, could we let them get away with 18-foot spaces? That's up to the ZBA. Our job is to make sure that all of the requirements of the ordinance are met, and we do not have enough data, as has been stated, so I'm good.
Thank you, Dennis. I concur. If we could separate the two, I wouldn't have any problem with the special use approval. I have an issue with the site plan, though, significant. And I think the site plan, if we can get a site plan that meets the requirements of the ordinance for site plan review, I'll be happy. Any other comments? We have a motion on the floor to postpone to our June meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, that brings us up to staff updates.
Take a breath and let's see where we're at with the sign code. I am expecting to bring that forward to the city commission. We're going to have a presentation by the consultant related to the sign code. That would be at the June 16th city commission meeting. We had a meeting regarding the zoning ordinance, but we didn't get too far in any of the reviews. However, we are setting up the zoning 101. I have a couple of emails, but I haven't read them today. Regarding the zoning 101, that's where we're going to have the planning commission along with the city commission meet together, and then the consultant is going to just do a basic zoning 101, kind of give everybody some general information about the purpose of the master plan and how that leads into the zoning ordinance, and explain the different maps, and then talk about, you know, the year ahead as far as what we'll be doing with the new zoning ordinance. I don't know if you guys received an email. I guess that would come from me. I don't think Debbie sent it out, so I'll be sending that out tomorrow then. I'll give you the notice of that meeting.
What was that date again, Terry?
Let's see, June 16th.
June 16th.
And I will get, I didn't do today, I didn't get a chance to read any of those emails about the zoning 101, but that is the next step that we anticipate is to have that. So
And that would be a meeting prior to the regular city commission meeting, or is that an off week? I'm not sure what the schedule
Yep,
is. It's a Monday, yeah.
yep, it's a Monday.
I would assume it would be an off week rather than have it as part of the regular city commission meeting.
Yeah, let me take a look here. Okay, I need to correct myself. June 9th at 5 o'clock, and we got to get the notice out to you, from 5 to 8 on June 9th, and then the June 16th is that city commission presentation of the sign, so that had nothing to do with zoning 101. So it will be June 9th from 5 to 8. And I will make sure that I give you an email first thing in the morning to set that on your calendar.
Thank you. Dennis?
Through the chair to Terry, give us an update on what happened Monday night on the items that you,
Oh, thank you. Yep. Monday night, I had 4 public hearings myself as far as what I brought to the meeting. 2 of them were related to marijuana ordinances. They were changing the time from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock to add an additional hour. I guess some of the surrounding townships have that ability for 10 o'clock. So it was just changed 1 hour. That was in those 2 city code of ordinances. Then on the Planning Commission agenda that you had seen was the McGraw Street right-of-way. So that was approved. There was a last minute, I don't know if I had mentioned this to the group, but I am recommending an amendment to that ordinance, which is the street and alley vacation. Because right now what happened, following the ordinance, the Planning Commission held their public hearing. We did all the public hearing notices. Then we have to advertise in a local paper for 4 consecutive weeks, which we did. But then it's also during that time for the city commission public hearing that we have to send a certified mail. Well, the certified mail got the attention of a third party that wasn't known or had an interest up until the last minute when he got the certified letter. Merson was able to accommodate him by incorporating him or that party into that agreement that they had between the 2 of them. So now they're satisfied. There's the 3 parties. The recommendation that I'm going to make after going through this is, 1, have the certified mail be sent for the Planning Commission public hearing, because in the ordinance it states the certified letter doesn't get sent until the city commission meeting. But that's even after, you know, all that expensive publication and everything. So I'm going to change it to where the certified letter does go out to the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission public hearing. And then the other change that's going to take place is that ordinance has been unchanged for decades, if not a century. What we need to do is to eliminate the 4 weekly publications, because it does require us to advertise these in a paper of general circulation. I don't know if you are aware of this,
The Pinconning, isn't it?
most of all the local municipalities use the Pinconning Journal as their public hearing notice venue or, posting. For planning, I have not been able to justify that the Pinconning Journal is a newspaper of general circulation, so we do have to go through the Bay City Times, and those prices are very high to do 4 consecutive publications. I checked with the attorney. He doesn't see anything in law to change it to 1 publication. So actually, it'd be 2 publications. It'd be 1 for the Planning Commission, and then there's already a public hearing built into the city commission process. So the idea is to, because I had a choice to either increase the fee. Right now, there's a $600 fee to file an application for right-of-way vacation. So either had to change the fee and increase it or find relief from that 4 publication. And I think that is the answer, to keep the price the same and then just change the ordinance. So I will be bringing an amendment to that section of the ordinance. And then lastly at that meeting was the rezoning for Center Avenue, and that went through without a hitch. The parties representing the application for the rezoning were present, but everything was approved. So that is well on its way to having the purchase agreement hopefully finalized.
Just out of curiosity, you said there was a third party on the McGraw Street
Yeah.
vacation that came out of what? I mean, was it an owner or?
Well, it was one of those obvious but overlooked things. The focus was on Merson and Quality Bag because they're the ones that actually acquire property from the vacation, but the right-of-way teed into a property known as Skull Island, and that person wanted to have continued access. Now, I did make a case to say you do have access off of Harrison Street, so he would have had access, but he still wanted the ability to have the north part of the property. Again, it's very limited on the usability of where he wanted, but because by effect of that vacation, he would lose that right-of-way access, he wanted to be included in it. So,
Thank you. That was just for a point of information for me. Thanks. Any other items not on the agenda that anyone wishes to bring up? Again, Timothy, welcome aboard. We're looking forward to your participation, and we're at full house for a change.
yes,
It's been a while.
yeah, good.
Hearing no other information or comments to come forward, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and support. We're adjourned
All right, thank
at
you.
8:43. See you next month. Sorry, that was 7:43, Lisa.